the purpose for this meeting, which we do every year, before each bar exam, so we do it really twice a year, is to provide what I call the more procedural administrative information that you guys are going to need in order to complete your applications in a timely manner, so that you can then be ready to study for and take the bar exam in February. We often will come back sometime when it's closer to the exam. I would say sometime in January. But at that point, I wear two hats. I'm currently the admission director, but I also sit on the board of bar examiners and the chair of the board of bar examiners, and Professor Joan Horth, who also is on the board. We usually will come back and talk more about the exam structure itself and studying and preparation. This meeting is really more for what I consider the administrative side of it, because that's the part of the cycle that you all would be in now. So I'm going to start and give a little introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Fulton, who you will all deal with a lot. You won't deal with the admissions director a lot. You kind of hope you don't, because that's not always a good thing, but I'm always there. But Cindy's the one who interacts every day with our applicants, does a phenomenal job, and also does the accommodations. So if you have questions about accommodations, she's the one who processes those, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So let me start out by saying that applying to the bar, and I would hope that most of you already have, but if you haven't, understand that the first deadline is actually coming up, which is October 1st at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. After that point, anyone who applies would have to pay a $550 late fee in addition to the normal fees. That stays open until December the 1st at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, at which point all the application process closes, and there are no exceptions. Under the Supreme Court rules, I can make no exceptions for that. So if you forget and you do it on December 2nd, your application, well, actually, you won't even be able to submit. But if you call, Cindy will tell you, sorry, you have to wait till July. So do yourself a favor, and if you're planning to take the February 2023 bar exam, get your application in so you can start sending in all the supplemental information, and Cindy will talk about that in a minute. I like to think of the bar exam process as sort of two-pronged. The first prong is what I call the administrative side, and that's filing your application. And then Cindy will explain to you, she'll send you a letter or an email with a letter that outlines all the other documents you have to provide. And you have to get all that information in, and that is sort of the procedural side. Once, as opposed to the bar exam itself, once you get your information in, and once we have finished up with the cycle immediately before, which right now we're working on the July cycle from this past summer, then you will then start to go through character and fitness review. And we have a staff member whose name is Anitra Jones, and she is the admissions manager. And her sole job is to review files for character and fitness after we have the information, which, by the way, not only includes what you submit, but information we get from what you submit. For example, Cindy, we can talk about fingerprints, because that's something everyone has to do. We send those over to the FBI. We get FBI reports on everybody. So until all that information is in our files, Anitra doesn't review you. And then after Anitra reviews you, then I review every file. The admissions director reviews every file, and we can talk about character and fitness separately. So before we get into that, Cindy, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can start to talk about the application process, how it works, and what they should be ready to do.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So not quite sure how many people that are tuned in have already gone through creating an online account. That is actually the first step that's required in order for you to be able to move forward with filling out our online application and getting it submitted. So if you have not, I'll just go over it a little bit. You would first need to log into the main website, nvbar.org, and there are links across the top that will take you to the admissions page. And once you're on the admissions page, it will have links there to follow you through for you to be able to apply for the online application for the February bar exam. It will prompt you to create an account, and once you have done that, it will prompt you to pay a $60 application fee. And once you do that also online, you will then have immediate access to begin filling out the actual online application. You will go through that whole application. Your application will not be deemed submitted to us until it is completely filled out online. And then at the end, it will prompt you to pay the applicable exam fees. And that could be different based on whether, you know, your situation, whether you're going to take it on your laptop, or whether you want to be a writer, writing it out in booklets, or whether you're maybe an attorney in another state or just a student. All those fees will be automatically calculated at the end based on how you answer those questions within the application. So when you get to the very end, you filled out the complete application, prompts you to pay the applicable fees, and once you do both of those steps, then that is what deems your application submitted. And once that's done, we get notification on our end, so I know when that's been done, and that will prompt me to start the process with you. We'll immediately send you an email, or within a day or two, depending on if you wait a little bit closer to the deadline, like a lot of people do, they kind of wait to the last minute. And if that's the case, then it may be a day or so before you'll hear from me, because it'll just be the volume of people coming through at the last minute. But you will get an email from me stating that we received your online submission, and I will give you a little bit of information in the body of the email. I will attach instructions that will give you step-by-step instructions on what needs to be done as far as documents, what documents need to be submitted, the time frame in which those documents need to be submitted, and like Dean mentioned about fingerprinting, there will also be a live scan form. All applicants within the state of Nevada will be sent as an attachment to that first email, will be sent a live scan form, and that will have all the information that you need to know as well on being able to take that to a fingerprinting agency to get your fingerprints done electronically. So all you would need to do is take that live scan form to a fingerprinting agency, let them know, and they will see from the form that it's going to be done electronically. I think there's also some information on our website that gives you a list of fingerprinting agencies in town that does offer electronic fingerprinting, as well as done by fingerprint physical card. Now,
Cindy,
if you get to the
Cindy, can I interrupt? Cindy, 1 second?
Sure. Sure.
Cindy just said something I really want to stress, and that is we do have a website. We go to great pains to update that website regularly. You get to it by going to nvbar.org and then clicking to the admissions, and then there's a whole slew. But the point is, all the forms, or many of the forms, are on that website. But do not, please, in an attempt to try to get ahead of us, send in anything until you get that email from Cindy, because if you start sending things in before she's ready, it won't get entered. So don't think you're helping by, for example, going and printing the fingerprint thing now and going and getting them. It won't help. You're better off waiting. Cindy will send it to you. But just know that the forms are all online. Much of the information about the application process, pretty much everything we're telling you is online. And we update that information regularly to tell you about the actual bar exam. So Cindy, I'll turn it back over to you, but I think it's important because I know you've had issues
Oh,
with
yes.
that in the past.
Yes, I actually had that very that very situation of talking to everybody about that I was going to get to here in a few minutes. That yeah, it's very so basically the online forms that you see on the admissions page. Like Dean said, it's not for you to start early and start gathering the documentation because there may be some information, some documents that you don't need to be concerned with based on your situation. And so again, until you hear from me, it's going to tell you exactly what you need to do. But they're there, say there's a situation where, you need another form or you messed it up. That's kind of there for your convenience to be able to go and download another copy. That's mainly why it's there. It's not really there for you to start doing it ahead of before you get that email from me. So that's good information, Dean. So back to the fingerprinting, what I was about to say too, if you get to one of the agencies and they say, oh, well, we don't do electronic, you can always call me and you can do it by a fingerprint card, no doubt. But you need to use our cards. Our cards have specific stamp codes on them. So if you go, don't suggest you go to police station, sheriff's station. They're not very helpful with our applicants. They'll say, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, and they're not really helpful. So there are a lot of fingerprinting agencies in town that will do either way. If you need to use a physical fingerprint card or the live scan form that I'll attach to that first email that you're going to get from me. So, just if you get there, you're thinking they were able to do it electronically and they weren't, just give me a quick call and I can easily get you one of our cards and you can have it done that way.
For those of you who are wondering, the reason is that you have to be in Nevada to do the live scan. So if someone applies, and we get a lot of applicants from out of state who aren't living here, Cindy would send them the card. So we do have the card, but since you're all here, this group is all here, you'll all do the live scan. But people could be living anywhere in the country, so they don't get to do the live scan. So just want to explain that.
Yes, in that regard too, how I base whether I send you a physical fingerprint card or the live scan form is based on the mailing address that you list when you fill out that. It's like the first or second page of the application. Make sure that under the mailing address, that is the address that you want us to communicate with you in any way, because that's very important. Let's just say you have another address, but you happen to list under the mailing address an out-of-state address. Well, that prompts me to send you a fingerprint card, and it doesn't mean you can't use it. It's just that's how I base, whether I'm going to send you a live scan form based on Nevada only residents. I base it on that mailing address. So just be aware, if you haven't already gone through the process, these are the applicants that need to be aware of that. That's how that's determined. And so, like I said, so again, after you submit and you get that first email from me, it will tell you everything you need to know, what your deadlines are to get the documents back. It's going to say some documents are not needed right away within that 21-day turnaround time. They're still needed, but there's just certain documents that we need back within that 21-day. So what happens is once your 21-day, and it's in the 21-day time frame, starts from the day that you get that email from me. So 21 days starts from that. And I mentioned that as well in the email, so you're well aware of that. So let's say the 21 days have passed. What I do, the next step for me in that case, whether you've sent them all in or not, I send what we call a deficiency letter. That prompts me to send the deficiency letter after your 21 days have passed. And that letter will either say we have everything from you, or there's still documents left hanging out there that should have been returned, and it prompts you to go log into your account, click on step 4 on your dashboard, because that will take you to the document page of your dashboard. It will list every single document, and it will either state it's complete, that we have it in green, or it will state not done in red. So that's where you know. So if you get the deficiency letter that states we still don't have everything from you, you definitely need to go to your dashboard as soon as possible and see what's still hanging out there. You may think that we have some things, but in reality we may not, and it's based on that dashboard. So just make sure, you know, that you do that once you get that deficiency letter from me.
And keep
And
in
saying
mind too,
so,
Cindy, excuse me,
uh-huh,
they should keep in mind that while we don't, it's not like the world's going to end, but if you get that deficiency
right,
letter and you don't respond and you're generally unresponsive, there have been people who have been called in for interviews for character and fitness because of that, because
yes,
we get concerned that if you can't be timely on your application, how are you going to handle it when you're practicing law, assuming that you get admitted? So, you know, it's from this point forward, and I'm not saying that you haven't been, I'm just saying we take the position that you're professionals and this process is your process, and it's incumbent upon you to fulfill these responsibilities. We will help you any way that we can reasonably. Cindy, if you email Cindy, she will get back to you if there's a question or a concern, but don't do nothing. That's the worst thing you can do, is to just ignore us or to not complete, because that will start, that gets documented. And when I look at those files, I do look at that. So do yourself a favor and be reactive, be on top of this, be proactive. Don't wait
yes,
for
that's
someone to come and
exactly,
say,
yes,
you know, we still don't have. And in that vein, I want to mention, and this is on our website, under the Supreme Court rules, we are required to have your JD that show your transcript with the conferral of your JD by February 10th. Now, we realize that, you know, and again, in February, it isn't as bad as in the July exam, because you don't have as many people graduating in December, new graduates. But we work with your registrar, with Stacy, all the time. And he knows that if there's a backup at UNLV, he knows how to get in touch with us to provide us with information that we need. But don't rely on that. Be proactive. You know, assuming that, you know, make sure that you ask UNLV to send us your transcript. We will work with you if there's a problem, and Stacy will tell us they're backed up, and we'll work with you, but we're not going to, you know, technically without that JD, you can't sit. And certainly if we don't have it by the time of the exam, you cannot sit. And there's no exceptions to that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, Cindy, go ahead. Sorry.
yes, and that's exactly was my next point that I was going to relay as well. The most important thing, really, in you taking care of your situation with your application is to be proactive. A couple of the points would be, like Dean said, make sure, for me too, make sure that you regularly check your emails, because there may be some situations where we need to reach out to you. I need to reach out to you. Anitra Jones may need to reach out to you for whatever reason. And, you know, if you don't check your emails, you're going to miss some things that we may need you to, you know, work on ASAP. So please make sure to regularly check your emails. Also regularly check the dashboard that I just spoke to you about. Once you log into your, you can log into your online account at any time and click on that step 4. I would say check that at least once a week. Just keep up on checking that status on how your documents are, you know, and, you know, check on if you told some of your 2 references that you need to send in, that they need to send reference letters to us, and you just assuming they said they did it. Well, maybe they didn't, but if you keep check on your dashboard to see that and it still shows not done, then that's something that you need to check back either with them or me or whatever. But that's another thing to make sure that you do regularly on your own. And then as well, another item that you need to be proactive with and make sure you check regularly is is the admissions page website, where it shows it, the link is admission news. Because if anything changes in our format, the Supreme Court comes back and decides, you know, that something's changed, the way that the format of the exam is going to be, that is the link that you need to click on. And that could be at any time. So that's something that's very important that you make sure that you check. Now, if you're already a registered applicant, we not only will post that under the admission news online on the website, but we will also send a blast email out to all registered applicants. So you're going to have two ways. But I would still, just make a point of checking your emails, checking your dashboard for your documents, and checking the website to see if there's any updates with any changes in regard to the bar exam itself.
And since you brought it up, Cindy, I'm going to mention that we were getting some questions. We did post something about this. We don't know yet what the format of February is going to be, meaning is there going to be an MBE exam or is there not? That is totally up to the Supreme Court. Is it going to be open book or closed book? Again, that's up to the Supreme Court based on that part's based on recommendation from the Board of Bar Examiners, but the MBE is totally up to the court. So it very well could be that they're going to use the MBE next time. We don't know that. We have said to them, we need to know so that we can let you know, but we also have to order those exams from the National Conference of Bar Examiners, because that's through them that we administer the MBE, but we don't create or grade the MBE. So we won't know that until the court, and I'm expecting that they'll let us know probably by mid-October is what I'm expecting. As soon as we know that, Cindy said, we will post it, and anyone who's already a registered applicant will get a blast email. So, we would appreciate it if you wouldn't ask us that until we know something, because we have nothing to tell you. We assume that the standard exam is given until and unless the court tells us otherwise, which means it's a 2.5-day exam, 7 essays of Nevada law, 2 NPTs, which are practice tests on Nevada law that we do, and then 1 day of the MBE. That's what we're assuming, but it could change. So when we know something, we will let you know. Anything else, Cindy?
Correct. Just a couple other points I want to get back to, like when the emails that, especially the initial emails that I may be sending out, instructional emails. Please read it in its entirety. I mean, we'll put up at the top red bold letters to please read the letter in entirety. A lot of times, you'll just kind of pinpoint some things and not read the whole thing, because everything within that email is very important. So please, if you get any email from me, it states to please read the entire email. That would be most helpful because some things get left undone because, an applicant may not have read, the whole email. So I wanted to make a point on that to make sure you do that. And as far as the documents, if you get into some situations where it's looking like you're having trouble getting certain documents on, getting them in, like maybe before the deadline is supposed to be, just please call me. I can always work with you. On a lot of documents, I can extend deadlines to a certain point. Of course, like Dean had just mentioned, though, one of the things that doesn't take care of is the JD. That's a definite deadline of February 10th for this exam. So there's really nothing other than if it gets close to February 10, you don't think your school can get us that transcript showing your conferred degree date, we will accept a letter from the dean's office stating that you can call them and say, hey, I'm getting nervous. I don't know if I'm going to get this to them by February 10. And they say that you can send me a letter. All that letter needs to state is that you did complete all of the credits in order to receive your JD conferred degree date. That's all we need. That will at least get you able to sit for the exam. Now, eventually, we will still need to get that transcript showing your conferred degree date. We will need to have that before you could be admitted. So just keep that in mind. But again, on the documents, if you're getting concerned that you're not going to reach a deadline, just please call me, because I can more times than not I can work with you with that.
And something else, Cindy, that I think I want to mention is the FBI reports. we do that obviously in-house. You don't see those. You'll know, but if we don't get it, and sometimes every cycle, there's a few that we just don't get back from the FBI. Cindy may be reaching out to some people again and saying, look, I know you did this. I know this is not what you want to be doing, but we need you to do another fingerprint because it got lost in the FBI world. And rather than not have you be able to be admitted and reviewed, we want you to be all done. So Cindy may send you a second set. If she does that, understand it's not us. It's because we didn't get the information back from the FBI through the Nevada Department of Public Safety. So, just be flexible with us. We try to stay on top of that because we've learned through the years that sometimes happens. Normally it doesn't. Hopefully it won't happen, but it does. Okay,
Yes,
so
that's correct. And if you have it done through live scan, make sure that the form that is attached to you through an email from me that you take to the fingerprinting agency that you go to, make sure there are parts on there that they need to fill out, but they do not keep it. You need to make sure you get it back from them because you need to send that back to us. That tells us that, yes, they did in fact send your prints off electronically. It's very important for us to know because on the other hand, with fingerprint cards, we know when we send it off because you have to send a physical fingerprint card back to me, and then I, in return, send it off from our office. So just make sure if it's electronic, just make sure they give you that live scan form back so we can have it for our records to know that they did, in fact, send it off that way. So I think that pretty much takes care of that. That's pretty much, I guess we can ask questions later if anybody has any
thanks,
questions about.
Okay, so yeah, I'm sure there'll be questions about the accommodations and potentially and anything else. I just want to, because I want to make sure we don't go over here. I just want to say a few things about, so that's what I call the administrative side. But on the other side of the admissions process is character and fitness. So let me explain about how that works. First of all, there are a lot of questions on the application about your past. You need to be very honest. You need to be very thorough because I can assure you that more times than not, the things that get applicants in trouble isn't so much the events, it's the omission of the events. It's the lack of candor. The lack of candor is probably the main reason that we bring people in because we see not only the FBI reports, but for example, we send a letter to the dean of every law school, and when they fill it out, and then they also include a copy of your law school application. So as I am sure you were told on your first day of orientation, if there's anything in your background that you were required to disclose to Boyd and you didn't, and it shows up on us, whether you tell us about it or not, that's going to cause a candor concern because why didn't you tell it to Boyd? And we often, when we see that, we'll make you go back to Boyd and say, amend your application, and we need a letter from the dean confirming that it will not affect your JD. So do yourself a favor. Hopefully this is not going to be a problem for you, but if there's something that you think you may not have disclosed, you can get a copy of your application from the registrar's office, read through it and make sure there isn't something, and you'll know if there was something in your past that you didn't disclose. Also, when we look at it, so you're going to fill out all those questions, and we're going to ask you to provide supplements, which are, part of the process that list every, ticket you've gotten, whether they're parking tickets or moving violations. We understand two things. We understand that you're not going to always remember every parking ticket, but especially with UNLV students, I've seen students come through with like 50 or 60 parking tickets in their history. That's a concern, to be honest with you. It doesn't mean you won't get admitted, but it probably means you're going to be called in for an interview. And I'll explain what that means. I've had students, particularly from UNLV, who come in and they owe a lot of money on their parking tickets. That's not good. We ask about your financial background, your credit, we get a credit report. We need to confirm that you know how to handle finances, because studies have shown that attorneys who don't handle their own finances well often do not handle their clients' finances well, and sometimes have a tendency to want to dip into their client trust accounts, or also referred to as their IOLTA accounts. And for those of you who have hopefully already taken professional responsibility, you know that that's a big no-no and will get you disbarred pretty quickly. So we have learned over the years that students that have trouble with their own financial world, we need to understand that. Doesn't mean that we're going to punish you, but we need to understand it. You may get an email from Anitra that says, we'd like you to fill out this financial affidavit telling us your financial history, your current financial situation. If you've been involved in any lawsuits, whether it's as a plaintiff or a defendant, you'll have to fully explain it and provide us with copies of the pleadings. And that includes divorces or custody issues. We're always looking to make sure that we've looked at you as a whole, and to make sure there isn't anything in your background that raises any concerns about your ethical ability, your candor, your financial aptitude, anything like that that could cause an issue. Now, the fact that we find something does not necessarily mean you won't get admitted. We have a process that we go through, and this is all in the Supreme Court rules. We have 3 levels of review. The first level is called an informal interview. That will be with me and Anitra. There won't be any committees part of that. That allows me as the admissions director to ask someone to come in and interview with me if there's something in their file that just doesn't seem right, or I think needs a little more explanation. Because I have the ability to clear you. Many of the applicants I clear after that review. They never hear from us, they're just cleared. Some people, I need more information before I can either clear them or move them on to a hearing. Some people I move right to hearing, and there's 2 kinds of hearings. An informal hearing, which is with a panel of our character and fitness review from the Moral Character and Fitness Committee. And those are usually, like the name says, more informal. There's a $250 fee for that. And oftentimes, not always, the committee will clear you. They just need to talk to you, get more information, something more serious. Often DUIs will fall into that category, substance abuse issues. We have an addiction physician who sits on the panel. And when we see a history of that, again, it does not mean you won't get in, but we may have you come in and meet with a informal hearing panel with the physician addiction doctor, who will then work with us to determine whether there are issues. If there's something that we feel is really not good from the very beginning, or as a result of an informal, we can send you to a formal. A formal is just it's like an evidentiary hearing. We have a court reporter, there's a $2,500 fee. It's like and in either of those, you're entitled to bring an attorney with you. My recommendation would be, if you do that, which you have every right to do, to try and find an attorney who has handled these kinds of affairs. It doesn't always work well if it's an attorney who's used to going and litigating in court, because this is not that kind of a hearing. Of course, you can bring anyone you want. We also don't give you recommendations because we feel that would not be appropriate, but people know. I mean, if you talk to other people, they'll know. But hopefully most of you will not even go down that road. But I just want you to be aware that the first step is filling out that application. So be very thorough. I'd much rather that you err on the side of caution. And if you're not sure, and I've had this happen, or you have something in your history that you're really nervous about, feel free to reach out to me. Sydney, you can put my email address up there, which is deang@nvbar.org. Not to be confused with Dean Fernandez, who's the assistant director. So we have two deans and it gets confusing. You can reach out to me. You can also reach out to Anitra Jones, and her email address is Anitra, ANETRAJ, @nvbar.org. And again, all of these email addresses are on the State Bar website. We can't tell you up front, oh, don't worry, but we can maybe give you some guidance as to A, whether you need to disclose it. Chances are yes. And B, is it a hopeless situation? We don't get too many of those, but every once in a while, someone will call and I'll say to them, you might want to, like I had somebody last cycle who was literally serving an in-home sentence for a federal drug charge. I said, I don't think it's worth you even applying at this point because there's no way you're going to get through at least until you're done with that probation. And I can't assure you that you'll get through ever, but at least if you come in while you're still in the penal system, I cannot imagine a scenario and you're going to be wasting your time and your money and your effort. So I'm happy to have those conversations. Again, ultimately, the choice is yours. In your case, it's not an issue, but we get attorneys from other jurisdictions who've been disbarred. They cannot sit. If you've ever been disbarred in another jurisdiction, you are not able to sit for the Nevada bar. But again, I don't think that's particularly relevant to you, hopefully, because I don't think you'd be in law school then. So that's the character and fitness side. I do hold interviews before the results come out, but we do not, even though your file may be reviewed, we do not schedule and hold informal hearings or formal hearings until the test results come out and you pass, because it's a lot of time and effort and money on your part to go through that if you don't pass the exam. So hopefully you'll all pass, but sometimes it happens. So what will happen is after the list comes out of who passed, Anitra will start contacting people and saying, we need to schedule you for a hearing or possibly even an interview if I haven't done it beforehand. So that kind of finishes up the character and fitness. I'll say something really quick about accommodations, and then I'm going to let Cindy answer your questions about accommodations, because we could talk for 3 hours just about that. For those candidates who need accommodations, we have a process, and it's all online, in terms of the information. But the bottom line is, when you fill out your application, initially, there's a question toward the end that asks you, are you going to seek accommodations? If you check that box, yes, Cindy will send you the application. She'll also send you all the information that you need. The deadline for accommodation applications for the February bar exam is January 1st. If you don't get it into us by January 1st, or if it's mailed and you tell us you mailed it December 31st, Cindy will give you a couple-day grace period, but we have to know that it was mailed in or that we know that. But we have a whole panel made up of psychoneurologists and other people who will look at these and may have to come in for an accommodation hearing. It's not a bad thing, but if the psychoneurologists have concerns with your test results, if it's a cognitive issue, or if it's a physical issue, the doctor may say, we want to know more. We just want to have an exploratory conference with you. And then they make the decision, yes or no. Do not assume that just because you got accommodations at UNLV that you automatically get accommodations for the bar. We have our own sort of requirements, although many of them are similar. So I don't want you to feel like you won't get them, but it's not an automatic. So with that, I'm going to stop. And if you have questions, then either Cindy or I will answer depending on what the questions are. And then if not, then Cindy can talk a little more about accommodations if anyone has those questions. So thank you. So Sydney, do you want to open it up? I don't know how you do it. Do you want them to raise their hands or what?
Yeah, so if you have questions, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself, or you can type it in the chat.
No questions. Well, that's good. Oh, sure. Cindy, can you give them your email address, please?
My email address? Sure. Yes, my email address is Cindy, T, CINDY, T as in Tom, at nvbar.org.
Right. And even though her name is
maintain
Cindy
both.
Fulton, Cindy Talbert was her
Yeah.
name, so she didn't change it. So if you're asking why is it different, that's why.
Exactly. But I maintain that email address, which is my personal email address with the bar, as well as the admissions at nvbar.org. I maintain both of those emails, so you can send it to either one.
Yeah, the admissions one is sort of the general one. That's what most people use.
Yeah.
So that should probably be your first email address, because other people than Cindy also can look at that. And like if Cindy's gone, like if she's on vacation, which doesn't happen very often, I can look at admissions. I don't look at hers. So if that way it doesn't sit till she gets back. Okay, the February bar exam is going to be at the South Point. We have information up on the website already. If you want to stay there, you're welcome to. We block rooms up until, I think the date that's on the website is January 29th, but you should check the website. It has the group code. Some people like to stay there so they're not worrying about running back and forth. But that's entirely up to you. I would say most local people don't. Certainly out-of-state attorneys coming in do, or out-of-state applicants who graduated from an out-of-state law school do, but you're welcome to. It's totally up to you. The other thing I would tell you is that if you have concerns like about the exam itself, or like, let's say if the Supreme Court says it's going to be an open book exam and you're not sure what that means, we try to keep up to date on the website. Frequently asked questions, or the FAQs. Right now, the ones that are up there are for an open book exam, but if the court comes back and says we're going back to closed book, then I have to go and change those back. If it's closed book, we're very, very strict about what you can bring in, obviously. Under no circumstances can you ever bring in a cell phone or an Apple Watch or anything that has internet. Oh, and that reminds me of one other thing I want to mention. That is the computers. Most of you, if not all of you, will be taking this on your laptop. You must sign up when you do your application and pay your laptop fee at that time. If you don't, you can't change later. After the first of the year, you will get, anyone who signed up to be a computer taker will get an email from our company that handles that, which is ILG. It's sort of like, we used to use ExamSoft, who I think you guys use at Boyd. We use ILG. You will get an email from ILG. There will be a date in there of when you have to download their documents for the exam and run your test exam to make sure that it works on your computer. That deadline will be in the email, but it's also, I think, already posted online, and it will be provided to you on the computer registration form that you fill out and return. Keep that date in your calendar, because if you don't register by that date, it closes and we can't open it again. And it's not like the day before the exam, it's like a week or two before the exam. So you got to do that as soon as you can. What happens is, just like what you're used to in law school, when you're in the exam itself and you go into the program, everything's downloaded. You've already downloaded the questions. You just can't get to them because you don't have the passwords, which we give you each session for that session. but you will not have access to the internet. The ILG program automatically, when you're open, it will block access to the internet. So do not think you're going to be able to go online. And that's why we don't let, even with an open book exam, we do not let cell phones in. We don't let anything else in. If it is an open book exam and you bring materials, I would encourage you to bring fewer than more, but that's your call. But what we would require you to do is bring your materials into the room, put them on your table where you're going to sit, and take your book bags and all your computer cases. And we have a room that we have a proctor in, and you leave it there during the exam. You can't come and go. Once that's in the room, it's locked up so that you don't have access to it. In a closed book exam, again, we're much stricter. We don't let anything in. We don't even let you, we don't even let you bring your own. We still don't let you use our pens, you use our pencils, you use our highlighters. Everything is there for you. But with an open book exam, we can be a lot less concerned because you're allowed. One thing I want to say up front, because this was a little bone of contention last time, the 2 practice exams, even though if we do have an open book exam, those are still what we consider closed book. Because those 2 exams, by nature of the practice tests, they have their own library, their own cases, everything you need to answer the practice questions, test questions are given to you. They don't want you looking at other materials. So, at that point in the exam, you're going to be told to put your materials away. And I don't want anyone saying, well, I thought it was open book. That is an exception to the open book policy. No matter if the whole other essays, if the 7 Nevada essays are open book, the NPTs are not. Okay, so that's, I think, it. Cindy, can you think of anything else?
I think we pretty much covered everything, unless anybody has any more questions.
Okay, well, we either did a really good job or a really poor job. So, and again, if you have any issues or questions, feel free to reach out primarily to Cindy at one of the 2 addresses for her, email addresses, and she will get back to you. She's very good about it. We pride ourselves on getting back, unless, of course, we're at a deadline, and then it may take her a little time. So for those of you who are doing February, who have not yet submitted your application, it'll cost you $550 more if you wait till after October 1. So try and get those in. All right.
All right. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Dean. Have a good
You
night,
are so
everyone.
welcome.
Thank you.